First at 4, a police chase in Detroit with a dramatic takedown. You may have seen it live right here or on clickondetroit.com. New information ahead. But the big story is the massive hurricane approaching Florida. Some neighborhoods look like ghost towns as people have boarded up their windows and hit the road. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Karen Drew. If you have any doubt about the power of Hurricane Irma, just look at these new photos from the island of Barbuda. Nearly 24 deaths are blamed on the storm after it bashed a string of Caribbean islands. Ben Bailey is tracking the storm. Yeah, Karen, this storm's still massive, and right now it is starting to enter the Florida Straits and probably won't encounter land again until it hits Florida sometime later this weekend. Of course, preparations already being made across Miami. The cloud bands from Irma starting to appear in the Keys and in South Florida. Folks leaving the state quickly and getting those preparations underway. Our Omar Jimenez is in Miami Beach as everybody gets out of town, and he's got the latest live from Miami. Omar.
Irma is down from a Category 5 hurricane to a 4, but that doesn't mean officials here in Florida are taking it any more lightly. Florida Governor Rick Scott urging those under mandatory evacuation, including here in Miami Beach, to get out now, adding that the majority of the state on both coasts will have significant hurricane impact and deadly winds.
For residents in South Florida, time is running out.
I recommend, I urge, I demand that they please leave Miami Beach.
Hurricane Irma is inching closer to the United States, bringing with it devastating wind, rain, and storm surges. The view from space shows the sheer size of the storm, larger than the entire state of Florida. The mayor of Miami Beach says there's not much his city can do.
There's no ability to handle or stop water from flooding from a hurricane, let alone a massive historical hurricane like Irma.
Thousands of Floridians have packed their cars and heeded those evacuation warnings, leading to clogged highways and gas shortages. State troopers are monitoring the roadways and doing everything they can to keep traffic moving. But some say they plan to ride out the storm.
We've got a pretty strong home, so I'm pretty confident that it will survive.
The governor of Florida has activated the entire state National Guard, 7,000 of them, and says today is the day to move inland, and all Floridians should be prepared to evacuate soon.
Remember, Hurricane Andrew is one of the worst storms in the history of the state. Irma is more devastating on its current path.
The storm is expected to strengthen as it moves over warmer waters just north of Cuba. On Saturday, Irma is expected to turn north, but exactly where and when that turn happens will have a major impact on which areas of the state are hit the hardest.
And another major concern in the state is gas, as we mentioned. Governor Scott urging all stations to stay open during this evacuation period, adding that employees who do stay will get a police escort out when they're ready to go. In Miami Beach, I'm Omar Jimenez.
Now, in the past, we have seen most hurricanes hit one side of Florida or the other. Irma is actually targeting both, with the whole state at risk. And Ben, we've really never seen anything like this.
It's rare, and unfortunately it is scary. Karen, as we look at this Category 4 storm right now, still at 155 mile an hour sustained winds, and there is nothing in the path of this as it heads towards Florida. The only time that this storm may see land interaction is depending on how close it gets to Cuba. If it gets a little bit closer, that could at least slow Irma down somewhat, may shear some of the wind speeds off of here, but still forecast to be a Category 4 with 150 mile an hour winds, and then generally not going to change its intensity as it heads towards Florida. So by 8 o'clock on Saturday night, even though the core is offshore, we'll start feeling the hurricane force winds in the Keys and South Florida. This storm eventually going to make landfall right around sunrise on Sunday morning with winds of about 145 miles an hour. And then it's just going to continue to blow through the entire state from south to north, still maintaining hurricane status as late as Monday at 8 a.m. And that's very near Jacksonville, just off to the southwest, and then continuing to weaken as it moves into Georgia with tons of rain for the deep south. We'll talk more about Irma's impacts and whether we'll see any up here, and also our forecast for the weekend coming up. Karen.
All right, thank you, Ben. Today, Hurricane Irma scraped the northern coast of Cuba as it inches closer to Florida. The storm battered yet another island with pounding rains and high winds. The government closed all schools and businesses, and this is just the beginning of the storm's impact. Each battered island looks very similar, with homes ripped apart and so many people left to pick up the pieces. This is what Irma did to the Dominican Republic. Some of those beaches were just torn apart, devastating for a country that truly relies on tourism for much of its income. The storm also bashed these boats in St. Thomas. The harbor is in ruins, and the storm knocked down power lines and heavily damaged a sewage plant. Some of these same islands are also in the path of another hurricane. Look at this satellite image. 3 Atlantic hurricanes threatening the region right now. Hurricane Katia is expected to make landfall in Mexico tonight. Irma is marching toward Florida. And behind Irma, you can see Hurricane Jose, which has now become a Category 4 storm. Many local families have ties to Florida, and we're hearing their stories as Irma moves closer and closer. Tonight at 5, we hear from a family from Southfield who just moved to Tampa about their critical decision to evacuate and rush north. 24 hours ago, a local college student was helping board up homes. Now, he's back to share his story. Make sure to join us at 5 and 6. And next week, Local 4 is joining forces with the American Red Cross and Art Van for the Help for Hurricane Relief Telethon. Thanks to you, we've already raised thousands of dollars for storm victims in Texas. Now, more fellow Americans will really need our help. So join us on Tuesday, September 12th. It starts at 6 in the morning and we go all the way to 8 o'clock in the evening to help with this effort. And as a hurricane threatens Mexico, that country was also hit by a powerful earthquake overnight. Nearly 36 people are dead. This is new video of the damage left by the 8.1 magnitude quake. It hit off the country's southern coast, ripping buildings apart and sparking tsunami warnings for some Central American countries. Buildings were even swaying in Mexico City, which is 650 miles away. What a wild police chase in Detroit. It ends in a bizarre act of desperation for one suspect. Now, you're looking at the video from Sky 4 when a group of officers chased that man driving a gray SUV with Oregon plates. He entered and exited I-75, and then look, he ditches the SUV, runs into oncoming traffic, and ran towards that van, scrambled onto the roof. Police follow him and take him down. New at 5, Coco McAvoy is learning more about everyone that was involved in this bizarre chase.
Chase on I-75. We spoke with the driver of the minivan who was caught in the middle of this.
All of a sudden I saw a guy jump from one side of the road to the other side. And at that point, I really didn't know what to do anymore. I was so scared. I really was scared.
Hear more from him and the investigators about how this chase started at 5 o'clock.
All right, Coco, thanks for that. Also in Warren today, investigators are on the case of a firebombing that injured one man early this morning. 911 calls came in about 1:30 for reports of a house fire on Wexford Street in the area of Ryan and 12 Mile Roads. The man suffered non-life-threatening injuries, but fire officials say the home is just about a total loss. As of now, no information on any possible suspects. If you have any information, call Warren Police. Back here in Detroit, charges are expected against an Uber driver who allegedly sexually assaulted a 21-year-old woman. Police tell us the man picked up the woman near Cass and Warren in Midtown, and this happened on Thursday evening. The driver took the woman to an unknown location and then sexually assaulted her inside of his car. The man is now in police custody after he turned himself in. Still ahead, millions of Americans being forced to check the security of their personal information. What you need to know about a new cyber attack. Also, the new Little Caesars Arena will open in 4 days, but thousands are heading downtown tomorrow. We'll tell you why. Hi there, Paula.
Hey there, Karen. And next, I know it's been a tough news week, so come on a little adventure with us to a brand new local vineyard. And it's true, the darker the berry, the sweeter wine.
In this Help Me Hang consumer alert, millions of Americans are still finding out their personal information may have been compromised. The number of people affected is huge, about 143 million consumers. Credit monitoring company Equifax says the attack exposed personal information, and that info could include social security numbers, birth dates, even credit card numbers. The breach was discovered back in July, but the company just went public last night. And click on Detroit. We've posted a link that will tell you if your information may be affected. And new at 5, consumer investigator Hank Winchester has more advice on how to protect yourself. We know it's been a tough week of news, so we wanted to take you away to another world, to wine country in Michigan. We're not talking about the west side of the state, but right here in Metro Detroit, where 21,000 grapevines call home and await their true purpose on their way to becoming fine wine. And of course,
hey, Karen, can you hear me? I think I just lost IFB. Can you hear me? Okay, guys, thanks. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, but listen, this is, I know you're going to love this. This is what wine looks like before it becomes wine. And take a look at this view. This is what a winery looks like when it's still a vineyard. You know, for all the wineries we have in this area, there are no actual vineyards until this one, right here in Ray, Michigan. It is a family affair. Children who race to get out of their school clothes to join their parents in the vineyard.
2 clusters each, please.
They don't watch much TV and have little interest in it.
We're usually working on the vineyard, trying to help the vineyard grow. It's like work. And we enjoy it. It's not like we want to sit around watching TV.
The grapevines were planted last year, thousands of them, rows and rows, 23 acres of grapevines and counting. The dream of Dave and Jess Youngblood has been to turn their ancestral farm into a vineyard, to make something great from their hands and the earth that has been home to 5 generations.
When I grew up here, it was we had cattle and corn and hay and wheat and oats and soybeans, those kinds of things.
Normally, it would take 2 to 3 years to produce actual grapes, but much to the surprise of the Youngbloods,
we'll walk down there too.
Their young vines have already started producing, and so work has already started on building a winery. Right now, they are blueprinting optimal harvest times.
So what the kids are doing is they're collecting a couple of clusters from different vines throughout the vineyard.
Jess calls it VinFit, an everyday exercise for every single of the 20,650 vines she has personally touched during the planting, pruning, fertilizing, stooping, bending labor of love that has become her very air.
But I'm absolutely in love with this variety. I mean, they're so beautiful.
In these early fall evenings, the petite pearls are ripening on the vine.
The darker, the better.
Sometimes it's 1 grape in the bag and 1 in the mouth.
You can eat them. Look at these.
Once the grapes are picked, it's time to test the sugar.
Yes, squish them and pick.
Testing the sugar is how you determine when the grapes are ready to pick. All right, kids, you guys want to guess the bricks?
24.7.
24.7.
22.7. Because it was bitter out there.
23.6. Because it's getting riper and you want it around 25 or 26.
19.0.
We have a ways to go.
All right.
Everybody get one big straw full.
That's good.
So the actual winery and tasting room is expected to be right about here at this clump of trees, I should say, cute kids included. Of course, they really don't expect to open until 2019, but Karen, thus far they've already been ahead of schedule, and it is delicious.
Paula, this is such a great story. I love it for so many reasons. The fact that they're reusing the land, that they're involving their kids, and plus, you know, I like wine too.
I knew you would. I knew you'd like it for that reason.
Well, it is a great story in Ray Township, Michigan. Something to be proud of, and we'll follow that family. We'd love to see how that wine turns out. Thank you, Paula. And I know you like that red wine too, Ben.
Absolutely.
So if we get a taste, I'll share that with you.
We need a good story on a day like that.
I know. There's so much negative news, and unfortunately, you know, it's like you're waiting to hear even more negatives because Irma is not far away from Florida.
This storm seems like it has just been going on so long, and even though we've been so focused on the stats and the data and the science of it, you can't lose track of all of those people who are having to make a life and death decision in Florida about not only whether to go or whether to stay, but where to go if they decide to leave, and time is starting to run out. This is the core of Irma right now. You're looking at Cuba down here. You can see the Bahamas there toward the north, and this storm is just going to thread the needle. It's going to go right in between. If it does interact interact with Cuba, it's likely going to just sort of brush some of those barrier islands there as it makes its turn towards Florida, but still a very impressive signature. We can start to see a little bit of warming in the cloud tops, possibly could be undergoing what we call an eye wall replacement cycle, which is just an internal change in the structure of the hurricane. Very difficult to forecast. So if there is any intensity fluctuation between now and landfall, it's likely going to be because of that process. Want to show you the extent of Irma's winds. We talk so much about the clouds. You obviously can see those, but this is the actual extent of tropical storm force winds. Those yellow shades, the orange is the hurricane force winds. So the tropical storm force winds coming on the Keys about 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. Then those wind speeds continue to increase, becoming hurricane force once we get into 5 o'clock on Saturday, and the core of Irma still offshore. In fact, the Florida Keys will likely spend almost an entire day under hurricane force winds. The actual storm making landfall probably about sunrise on Sunday morning, and then starting its long trek across the entire Florida peninsula. In fact, when we get towards about Sunday evening, there'll be a stretch between Orlando and Miami where everybody is dealing with hurricane force winds, and then this is just going to continue right up the peninsula and into Georgia as well. Back home, things much more palatable. Just a few sprinkles out there. Some of these a little bit more put together over in parts of St. Clair County, but it's all moving south and it's not going to last very long. We should see an end of these before the sun goes down tonight, and then it's a whole lot of sunshine beyond there. High pressure is going to settle in with the northeast wind off the lake. The model's trying to put down a couple sprinkles tomorrow. It's a very outside chance, and if it happens, it's going to be in our far north zone. Most of us are going to stay mostly sunny and dry. Can't do much about those temperatures, though. Looks like they're going to stay below average for most of the upcoming forecast. Low temperatures tonight going to grab your attention. Look at all the 40s that are going to be out there. 48 in the city. You get down to the south zone, those numbers start going as low as 42 or 43 out in parts of Lenawee County. West zone even cooler. Wouldn't be surprised out here towards Howell and Fenton if numbers got down to the upper 30s, at least for about an hour or so. And our north zone, temperatures still cool except near the lake, which will keep those numbers just a little bit milder up towards the mid-40s in Lexington. High temperatures tomorrow going to 67, barely getting to 70 on Sunday, and we'll finally hit average on Tuesday. Right now it looks like most of Irma's impacts are going to stay away from us, and we got a whole lot of sunshine to get through for the next week. Karen?
All right, thank you, Ben. Still ahead, it could be the hottest ticket in town this weekend. Why 20,000 people are headed to downtown Detroit tomorrow. And total strangers hugging, and this woman in tears. We'll tell you about the good deed that may have saved a life. A lot of people are talking about this. You know what's breaking news from the world of country music. Troy Gentry from the country duo Montgomery Gentry has been killed in a helicopter crash. It happened this afternoon in New Jersey, where the group was scheduled to perform this evening. Troy Gentry was just 50 years old. We're working on more details and getting those and share those with you in later newscasts. Well, in today's trending stories, more than 20,000 people are expected to visit the new Little Caesars Arena for a sneak peek inside this weekend. And that is a lot of people headed to downtown Detroit tomorrow throughout the afternoon. Now, you needed to reserve a free ticket for a specific tour, and all the tickets are gone. So don't wander down here hoping to get in. We have posted some information, though, at clickondetroit.com about which entrance to use and where you can find some free parking. And you can find the information on our homepage. This weekend is going to be very stressful for millions of people in Florida and really around the country, as many of you are keeping an eye on Hurricane Irma. Now, we're working with our sister station in Miami, WPLG, to stream their continuous coverage from South Florida. So if you want to see that, we've made it easy for you. You can go to Click on Detroit to see what's happening in Florida this weekend. Right now, it is one of those most viewed items on our website. And this next story is certainly going viral and touching people's hearts. As you can imagine, generators are selling out in Florida as people prepare for power outages. Well, this woman was devastated when she saw the last generator at the store was sold. You see, her father's on oxygen and can't live without electricity. One man who barely spoke English, didn't need any translation. He saw her tears and he let her take his generator.
Take care of everybody. Everything is okay. Everything is fine.
Sometimes you don't need words to hear gratitude. She later called this stranger an angel from God. Still ahead, we're not done with good deeds in the middle of a hurricane evacuation. How one business owner made a tense situation just a little sweeter. We have that next.
I'll never forget.
Finally, first at 4, it's already been a very tense and frustrating week in Florida, and Irma has not even arrived yet.
You can only imagine, but here's a good way to break the tension of a long, annoying gas line. Free ice cream. The owner of a Miami ice cream place saw all these people in line, so he decided to hand out free cones.
He says he was happy to offer a little love and a little kindness. Obviously, I have a feeling they're going to need a lot more of that in the weeks ahead, but it's amazing how you see the good nature of folks and sometimes in some of the worst times.
Absolutely, and hopefully we see a lot more of it. It would be better if he was handing out free gas, but
yes, I do agree on that. And of course, we will have the very latest on Hurricane Irma at 5 and 6. And thanks so much for joining us for First at 4.